Hey everyone, Scott here. Hope you're having a great day so far. Decided to throw together a quick video to show you guys how to make homemade soap. It's actually pretty easy and cheap to make. And I got into it about a year ago because I thought the chemistry was pretty cool. And I got into the chemistry because of making my own homemade rocket fuel. Well, as you can see, I still have some work left to do on that, but making soap is a little bit easier. Just about anyone can do it, so let's just jump in and see what materials we'll need. The primary base ingredient in all soap is some sort of fat or oil. For today's soap, we will be using coconut oil and avocado oil. Fragrances and additives. A hand mixer. However, I recommend you use a hand blender as it will speed up the process drastically. A kitchen scale for weighing our ingredients. Rubber gloves. Safety goggles. Plastic molds. It's important that you do not use aluminum. I'll explain later. And lye, which is also called sodium hydroxide. I picked this up as drain cleaner from Lowe's. Alright, before we go any further, let's talk a little bit about some safety when working with lye. I want to remind you, if you've seen the movie Fight Club, remember the scene where they dump the powder onto their hand and it burn him? Well, that was this, but of course it was over dramatized. It doesn't burn quite like that when it's dry. However, once you mix the lye or sodium hydroxide into water, that solution is quite dangerous. So it's absolutely imperative that you wear safety goggles, not just safety glasses, because if one little droplet was to get below and get into your eye, it could potentially blind you. So be safe with that. Also, when you're mixing this with water, it's extremely exothermic reaction. So what that means is it generates a lot of heat as it dissolves into the water. So you're going to want to mix it in really slowly. Let me show you an example of. So I placed some of the lye or sodium hydroxide in this little jar, and in here we just have a little bit of water. As you can hear, it boiled immediately. So I'm adding a little bit more water to dissolve the rest of that. And this is extremely hot. I can feel the heat. Almost burns my fingers just touching the glass. I've placed a small piece of aluminum foil inside the sodium hydroxide solution. Notice how it immediately starts to react vigorously. This is why you can't use aluminum when making soap. Now, before we start mixing together our ingredients, we need to come up with our recipe. So let's hop on the computer real quick. There are many online resources for forming your soap recipe. I found this one, which I like, but you can find any one that works for you. We are making solid soap. I prefer to work in grams. We will select 5% superfatting for this batch of soap. I'll explain superfatting in a moment. So for us to understand superfatting, we need to know a little bit about the chemistry, about what's going on when we're making our soap. Now, I'm not a chemist, but I can give you a quick and dirty explanation. When making soap, the primary molecule we are working with is a triglyceride. Triglycerides are what primarily make up your average beer belly, as well as the vegetable oils we use. A triglyceride molecule is made up of a glycerol backbone, which is on the left, and then 3 separate fatty acid strands. Fatty acids are just like the omega-3 fatty acid that you'd find in your fish oil supplements. This very crude example demonstrates how the lye, or sodium hydroxide, breaks the bond between the glycerol backbone and the fatty acid strands. The byproduct of this reaction is sodium salts, which we also call soap, and glycerol. This reaction is called a saponification reaction. Since we chose 5% superfat, our soap will have 5% of the oil remaining once all the lye is consumed. We do this because any leftover lye would cause the soap to irritate the skin, and the leftover oil makes the soap a little softer. These soap molecules have a natural tendency to group in a spherical shape. We call this structure a micelle. The micelles trap microscopic drops of oil within the center of the structure, and this is how soap works. Let's head back to our lye calculator. We simply fill out the grams of each oil we will be adding, and the website will tell us exactly how much lye and water to use. At this point, we can start to make our soap. First, we'll mix together our sodium hydroxide solution. being sure to mix in the lye slowly to ensure that we do not build up too much heat. If you're using an oil that is solid at room temperature, like the coconut oil in today's example, you'll need to warm it up until it is liquid. Go ahead and mix together your oils thoroughly in a large mixing bowl. Next, we will carefully add our lye solution. You'll notice that the oil immediately becomes cloudy. This is the saponification reaction occurring and forming soap. And now we mix. And keep mixing. And mix a little more. You'll notice that the oil begins to change color and start to thicken. At this point, the soap has reached trace. We can now add our essential oil fragrances. Continue mixing. We can now add our solid ingredients, being sure to wait until the soap is thick enough for the ingredients to not sink. Again, mix thoroughly. The soap will continue thickening as we mix. If you plan to use molds with complex textures, be sure to not let the soap thicken too much. We can now begin filling the molds. Tap or shake your molds to help remove any potential air bubbles. At this point, we're pretty much done. We can leave the soap to dry for 2 days, then demold it. At that point, it'll be firm enough where we can go ahead and cut this bigger one up into smaller bars. And then what we'll want to do is spread it out and leave it to dry for about 6 to 8 weeks. You're going to want to turn the bars, every few days to make sure that they dry evenly. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the cost involved with making the soap today. We'll start with the lye, which was $4.21. The jug of lye was bought at Lowe's for $15.98. We used about 26% of the bottle to make this batch of soap. The avocado oil cost $7.47. The coconut oil was $4.99. It's a better value if you buy the 2-pack. The fragrances and additives are where you'll spend the most money typically. I estimated that we spent around $10 for this batch. That makes the grand total for this batch of soap to be $26.67. Each bar of soap weighs about 100 grams. With this size batch, we can make approximately 24 bars of soap. That means the price per bar is about $1.11. A comparable store-bought bar of soap would cost approximately $4 to $5, maybe even more. You can see that there is definitely value in making your own soap. Well, thanks for watching today. Hope you had fun. Hey, and remember, science is a good thing. So is keeping clean. Stay classy.